Lock the doors. Order, order.
The ayes to the right, 299. The noes to the left, 82.
The ayes to the right, 299. The noes to the left, 82. So the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Unlock. We now come to the Fisheries Bill Lords Programme number 2. I call Victoria Prentice to move the programme motion.
Beg to move formally.
The question is the Fisheries Bill Lords Programme number 2 motion as on the order paper. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day.
Fisheries Bill Lords as amended in Public Bill Committee to be considered.
We start with Government New Clause 8, with which it will be convenient to consider the other selected new clauses and amendments listed on the selection paper. I call the Minister to move New Clause 8.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This bill marks a really important step forward as we leave the inflexibilities of the common fisheries policy. It puts in place the framework necessary for the UK to operate as a responsible, independent coastal state. It allows us to ensure that we have sustainable fisheries to provide benefits for future generations. The Bill's fisheries objectives place sustainability front and centre of this bill. 6 out of the 8 objectives relate to protecting the environment. It's critical that we're able to balance these objectives as we need to. Additional quota we receive following the negotiations will be allocated in a new way, and I'm pleased that 2 consultations on quota distribution were published today. This makes good our commitment in the 2018 White Paper, which my Secretary of State is particularly proud of, having put a lot of work into it himself. This bill is a product of collaborative and constructive working across all 4 administrations of our nation. And I'm pleased that all of the devolved legislators have consented to the bill. It was unfortunately, however, important to wait until we had that consent before we brought forward the further amendments on their behalf. And that's why I'm slightly embarrassed to say that the order paper is full of very technical government amendments. Many are amendments that DAs could have made themselves, but given the pressures on all of the parliamentary timetables in the run-up to the end of the transition period, we felt that in a spirit of cooperation, we should, if possible, make these changes for them. I will give way on that point.
I'm grateful to the Minister for giving way. I understand the position with regard to the devolved administrations. I don't understand, however, the position with regards to Government Amendment 36 in the Channel Islands. Why is that being brought to the House at this stage in proceedings?
I will, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, come to that very shortly. It is an important point and one that I personally am very interested in, having been on the Justice Select Committee and written a report on this very subject. The most substantive changes in these amendments cover provisions that make clear the ability of the DAs and the Marine Management Organisation to delegate functions between each other, the extension of Schedule 10 marine conservation powers to DERA, and amendments to Northern Irish and Scottish SIs to bring them in line with UK and Welsh SIs under Schedule 2. The final amendments are needed to implement the international treaty with the Faroe Islands. Government Amendment 36, I turn to now, includes a permissive extent clause which will allow the UK Government to legislate for the Crown dependencies to ensure compliance with our international obligations. This does follow a great deal of discussion with the Crown dependencies, and I recognise that they take their international obligations seriously. This is a subject I personally have long been very interested in, and which I have discussed with both the Lord Chancellor and my honourable friend from Bromley and Chislehurst, as well as other members across the House. I would like to reassure members, and indeed the Crown dependencies, that activation of the permissive extent clause would only ever be used as a last resort, and I'm looking forward to continuing discussions with the Crown dependencies on this in the next few days and weeks. I will.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way, and she does know this because she was a great servant of the Select Committee when she was a member. But she will be aware that it's not just a question of continuing discussions. As things stand, the governments and legislatures of both Jersey and Guernsey object. Not just that they don't think it's necessary, they object to the inclusion of a permissive extent clause in the bill. That is wholly unprecedented for the government to insist upon a permissive extent clause without the agreement of the relevant Crown dependencies. Why, even in the emergency, go down this rather provocative step? Why not wait until such time as the emergency arises and let them legislate as they've indicated they would?
I have nothing but the greatest respect for the former chairman of the as the current chairman of the Justice Select Committee, but on which I was very proud to serve for so many years. And he and I have discussed this very issue before. The government feels it is important, given that these are really significant matters of international law, that we retain the ability to legislate for the Crown dependencies if they do not show the inclination to do so at the time when needed. We very much doubt that this will be necessary. I am sorry that they are upset by this stand, but I do feel that this is the right thing to do in the circumstances at the moment. Finally, moving on to Government Amendment 55, this repeals provisions of retained EU law concerned with the catching of cod in the North Sea, which as drafted do not achieve what they were put in place to do. Turning now to the amendments relating to sea fish, this is the fantastic UK-wide organisation which promotes the efficiency of the UK seafood industry. I would be delighted to.
Thank you. Many fishermen, including Hastings and Rye fishermen who manage under 10-metre fishing fleet, voted to leave the EU to regain total control over our territorial waters. They are seeking clarity and reassurance on clause 12 of the bill that no foreign vessels will be permitted to fish or be granted licences to fish in our 12 nautical miles off the UK. Can my right honourable friend give this reassurance and clarity?
I would be delighted to. The government has been clear throughout that access to the UK's territorial seas are out of scope for any fisheries framework agreement with the EU. Any access negotiated with the EU will only cover the UK's EEZ and not the 0 to 12 metre zone. This remains the case. Yes, of course.
I thank the Ministers for giving way. Further to the correspondence that I've been having with the Department, I wonder if the Minister would look again at the funding for the enforcement vessel, because the reply I've had from the Minister says that there is no funding available for the enforcement vessel, but if the Minister wants to support her honourable friend in taking back control of our waters, we do need to ensure that that's enforced.
Enforcement is, of course, very important, and what I would say to the Honourable Lady, I will look out her correspondence and make sure that she gets a full reply, but we do have sufficient vessels to control our waters. In our view, we can't reduce risk levels to 0. The size of our EEZ, the potential number of EU and third country vessels which fish in our